My name is Elena Specht, and my presentation is on Neo-Riemannian harmony and the 20th century hymn topic. I argue that in the absence of functional tonality, Neo-Riemannian transformations are key features of 20th century hymns, and these transformations help establish continuity and coherence in the music. This presentation will begin with a background on the hymn topic and Neo-Riemannian transformations, then look at 4 pieces in detail. When musical topics appear in 20th and 21st century repertoire, they add a layer of meaning to the topic. They refer back to their 18th century counterparts, which are the source of topic theory, which in turn refer back to the original functional contexts of these styles. This paper looks specifically at the hymn topic and works of the 20th century. Mckee outlines the musical and expressive attributes of the hymn topic, summarized here in the chart. Traits like a chorale texture, soft dynamics, and slow tempo are important to the hymn, but Mckee places special emphasis on the 1-5-6 progression common in so many appearances of the hymn topic. Sanchez Kisielewska takes this work a step further to argue that the Romanesca schema, which begins with 1-5-6, overwhelmingly carries spiritual meaning when it is used in 18th century music. What happens then when the hymn topic is brought into 20th century neotonal music? This repertoire often uses triads but largely abandons traditional harmonic progressions. I argue that appearances of the hymn topic in this literature are frequently accompanied by Neo-Riemannian transformations. Progressive tonal harmony allows for a logical sequence of triads and seventh chords that lead into each other. Where triads exist but functional tonality does not, Neo-Riemannian relationships offer their own logic of progression, connecting adjacent chords by repeated transformation or common tone, which allows for smooth voice leading and cohesion in these hymns. For those unfamiliar, Neo-Riemannian transformations are harmonic shifts in which 1 or 2 notes of a triad are altered by half or whole step, achieving a movement to a distantly related key area. I will refer to the standard parallel, leading tone, relative, and slide transformations developed by Kohn and others. In a parallel transformation, the third of the triad is altered, making a major triad minor and vice versa. In a leading tone transformation, the root of a major triad or fifth of a minor triad is moved outward by semitone, changing the quality of the triad. In a relative transformation, the fifth of the major triad or root of a minor triad is moved by whole tone, moving to the relative major or minor. In a slide transformation, outer voices move by semitone, while the third stays the same. These transformations are frequently combined into one gesture. For example, an RP transformation first has a relative transformation, in this case C major to A minor, then a parallel transformation, A minor to A major. A PL transformation first has a parallel transformation, C major to C minor, then a leading tone transformation, C minor to A flat major. These transformations enable modulations to distantly related keys a major or minor third apart. For this project, I looked at neotonal hymns by several composers, all of which use Neo-Riemannian transformations in some way as a key part of their harmonic structure. Most, but not all, have hymn in the title, as this term does not need to be present to identify the hymn topic. None are arrangements or settings of liturgical hymns. This presentation will examine in detail the works by Britten, Schumann, Holst, and Floyd. Hymn to St. Cecilia, composed by Britten in 1942, has remarkably strong ties to the hymn topic while also employing Neo-Riemannian transformations. In essence, it is a bridge between the 18th and 20th century hymn topics. Written for SSATB choir, it sets a poem by W.H. Auden in 3 distinct parts, each part followed by a refrain. The text of the first section and the refrain are directed at St. Cecilia, the patron saint of musicians, and these sections are where the hymn topic is present. They are mostly homorhythmic, melodically and rhythmically simpler, and slower. The texture imitates a chorale. E major is the dominant tonal center of the work, though other key areas are visited as well. Mckee notes that the E major was traditionally considered the brightest key, most associated with heaven and spiritual transcendence, so it is an apt choice for a sacred work. The music shown here is a reduction of measures 1 to 5. Let's listen to the first minute of this piece. relationships drive these first measures, with PL and RP transformations shifting the harmony from E to C to A to F major, and finally back to E. The Romanesca bass line makes an unmistakable appearance in these measures. The brackets below the staff trace the bass moving E, B, C, and then from C to G to A, 2 consecutive occurrences. An incomplete third bracket shows a partially completed third iteration of this pattern from A to E to D, where D replaces the expected F, which does in fact appear in the soprano. Even though the harmonies above the bass do not strictly follow the Romanesca, the bass alone strongly signifies this bass line so pervasive in the hymn topic. In moving from E to C to A to F, chord roots are a third apart, chords share one common tone, and no chord fits in the key of the chord adjacent to it. As a result, each sonority brings an unexpected freshness, while at the same time the common tones provide continuity and coherence. Bright, sharp inflected harmonies, common tones between chords, and Neo-Riemannian transformations define this phrase. More transformations bring the rest of this section to several distant key areas, C, A flat, and E flat major, before returning to E major. The same homorhythmic texture carries through this section as well, and the refrains are variations on the opening section. Neo-Riemannian relationships overwhelmingly guide the harmonic structure wherever the hymn topic is evident in this piece. Schumann's American Hymn, composed for brass quintet in the early 1980s, is a 20th century work that explicitly references the 18th century theme and variation genre, along with the hymn and waltz topics. These traditional formal references are juxtaposed with chromaticism, bitonality, and Schumann's modernist style. Only the beginning and the end of this piece meet the hymn criteria. The middle variations are faster, rhythmically active, and dissonant. The hymn sections are slow, homorhythmic, quiet, and in duple meter. These sections are primarily triadic but non-functional. Neo-Riemannian transformations allow the music to visit disparate harmonic areas, and there is some interaction between Neo-Riemannian transformations and tonal harmony. This example is a reduction of measures 1 to 19. Measures 1 to 10, the top system, are chorale, and 11 to 19 present the theme over a chordal accompaniment. There is no key signature or tonal center, and this passage covers much harmonic territory, with 18 out of 24 possible major and minor triads used in just 19 measures. Let's listen. Some adjacent triads are second or fifth apart in addition to the more prominent third motion of Neo-Riemannian transformations. Triads related by a fifth suggest functional tonality. For example, in the first 5 measures, the first phrase begins on F major and ends on B flat major, 2 chords that are later held in tension in the bitonal section at the end of the piece. Thus, while Neo-Riemannian transformations make up the majority of harmonic shifts, they work in tandem with other motion to cover much harmonic ground. Chords related both by third and by fifth allow for a common tone, which creates smoother voice leading. PR transformations are most common, but LP, P, the slide, R, and L are employed as well. Many of the transformations allow the bass to move in a series of ascending or descending thirds. These bass motions imply larger motions of a fifth with a middle chord bisecting the motion. For example, E flat moves to B flat by way of G, again suggesting that both third and fifth relationships are important. The melody in measures 11 to 19 is mostly diatonic to G or D major and could have been harmonized accordingly. Perhaps this missed opportunity is emblematic of Schumann's use of the hymn topic. Though it meets many of the characteristics of the hymn, it rejects functional tonality, even at the most opportune moment, in favor of Neo-Riemannian transformations. As with other works in this study, these transformations are essential to the harmonic world of this hymn. nchez from Vedic hymns by Holst uses Neo-Riemannian transformations on a broader scale as harmonic arrival points and key areas to make this quasi-tonal song harmonically ambiguous. Of particular significance is tension between the third related tonal centers of B-flat and D, and a strong arrival on G-flat major. nchez is the first song in a set of 9 with text translated from Sanskrit by the composer. Written in 1908, it has a religious text, though unlike much of the Western canon, the source material is Hindu, not Christian. Several of Mckee's musical attributes for the hymn topic are present. It is generally quiet, rhythmically simple, slow, and in duple meter. The melody above a static accompaniment is suggestive of a common practice recitative. This layering of two distinct styles is defined by Hatton as troping. This simultaneous suggestion of hymn and recitative add a layer of complexity to this short song. Holst uses key signatures in nchez: B-flat for the beginning and end of the song, and D major for the middle. Tension between B-flat major and D major or D minor is evident throughout the song. B-flat and D major are related by an LP transformation. Structurally, this third relationship seems to replace a more conventional tonic dominant modulation. This excerpt shows measures 1 to 13. Let's listen.
Arise, for the night hath fled. Arise and greet the dawn.
Setting aside the F pedal tone, which is sometimes consonant and sometimes dissonant, the opening measures suggest D minor, but by measure 5, B-flat major is established, matching the key signature. However, the music does not settle into this key, but instead reaches a G-flat major chord by measure 9, a PL transformation from the B-flat major tonic. This motion is remarkably similar to the Romanesca, but instead of a succinct 1-5-6 gesture, these measures slowly explore 1, minor 5, flat 6. Unlike in a typical appearance of the Romanesca, the G-flat major chord in measure 9 is a key arrival point, a harmonic pillar in these opening measures. It is marked with the piece's first mezzo forte, the highest pitch yet in the vocal line, and a dramatic arpeggiation in the voice outlines the rest of the chord. By the end of the first stanza, the music is back to where it began, away from the B-flat tonic and suggestive of the competing tonal center of D. This harmonic progression repeats under the melody each time it appears, including when it's transposed to D major, with some variation each time. Undoubtedly, these Neo-Riemannian transformations are fundamental to the harmonic structure of this hymn. Ain't It a Pretty Night from the opera Susanna is not a hymn in name, but it possesses both hymn-like traits and Neo-Riemannian transformations in an overall tonal context. The song is slow, in a major key, in duple meter, and uses simple rhythms. It begins and ends quietly, the accompaniment is chorale-like, and the tempo is moderate. Like Holst's song, its major harmonic arrival points are related by Neo-Riemannian transformation. In the first 2 minutes of music, the song visits D major, G-flat major, E-flat major, G major, and B major, all major keys related by a major or minor third. Each key area is connected by a prominent common tone, smoothing over what would otherwise be an abrupt modulation. These transformations are fitting to the text. Susanna is singing about leaving her small community to travel to unknown lands beyond the mountains, big cities, and the music likewise wanders into distant unknown keys. This excerpt, showing a reduction of measures 10 to 17, begins after the introduction, which transitioned from D to G-flat major. The first 3 bars of this passage are firmly in G-flat major, establishing a tonal harmonic world in the simple texture of this song. However, the music soon modulates to E-flat by an RP transformation, then to G and B major by LP transformations. Each shift is to a brighter, more sharp inflected key area. Let's listen. The vocal melody itself never introduces the chromatic note. That job is left to an inner voice. In the modulations to G and B, the chromatic note is not introduced with the chord. For example, the arrival of G major on the word C, the B natural is omitted until the downbeat of the next measure. The careful introduction of the chromatic note smooths each of these transitions. Not only does each modulation move to a brighter key, the last 2 modulations both ascend, supporting the rising vocal line as it reaches its peak on an A. While the text for this whole passage is focused on the sky, perhaps it is no coincidence that the notion of stars falling right down out of heaven would occur at the melodic peak. After several more modulations, the song closes back in G-flat major after Susanna has vowed to come back once she has seen what's beyond the mountains. Indeed, her final words echo this opening phrase, confirming her return home, both physically and musically. These 4 works, along with the other 3 we didn't have time to look at, all generally imply the hymn topic with their texture, dynamics, tempo, and mood. Most notable, however, is the use of Neo-Riemannian transformations as a defining feature of each work. Many of these transformations allow for common tones between chords. These common tones offer a logical pathway between chords from disparate harmonic areas. Further research in this area could be done by expanding to a wide variety of 20th and 21st century hymns, more hymn-like pieces without hymn in the title, settings of liturgical hymns, and original works written for liturgical use. Further research could also look for other harmonic processes, including in works that are not neotonal. Perhaps the hymn topic itself needs an update to reflect the influence of 19th and 20th century liturgical hymns on recent composers. In any case, these works offer great insight into the Neo-Riemannian approach to the hymn topic in the 20th century.